Every US state has its own unique, surprising, and sometimes bizarre facts that make it stand out. Whether it's record-breaking events, strange laws, or fascinating natural wonders, there's always something interesting to discover. So get ready, because we're about to take a fact-filled journey across all 50 states. Alabama. The only state whose official drink is an alcoholic beverage, Conecuh Ridge Alabama Fine Whiskey, originally distilled by legendary moonshiner Clyde May. Alaska. The state is known for fishing, mining, and oil, but its latest industry is peonies. Peony farms blossomed from 0 in 2000 to more than 200 in 2014, and currently, they grow around 1.5 million stems a year. Arizona. The state that produces enough cotton each year to make 2 t-shirts for every American. That's 599 million tees.
Arkansas.
Famous for its diamond trade, Arkansas is the only state where tourists can search for diamonds in their original volcanic source. At Arkansas's Crater of Diamonds State Park, tourists can dig through fields maintained by the park and are allowed to keep any diamonds they discover. The park also offers a complimentary identification and registration of the gems. California. If it were a country, it would have the 8th largest economy in the world, beating out Italy, Russia, and India. Colorado. Although Congress intended the state to be a perfect rectangle, its surveyors wandered a bit off course. A tiny kink in the western border disqualified it from rectangle purity. Connecticut. The first phone book was published in New Haven in February 1878, containing just 50 names. Similarly, Connecticut's Hartford Courant is the country's oldest continuously published paper. Delaware. The state with the most generous laws regarding company ownership has been the model for the Cayman Islands and other offshore tax havens. Florida. The remains of an 8,000-year-old human civilization were found buried in a peat bog here. The bodies were so well preserved that human brain tissue was found in a woman's skull, with her DNA still intact. Georgia. Just outside Atlanta, the picturesque community of Serenbe requires each of its 200-plus homes to include a porch. Hawaii. The only state covered entirely by its own time zone, Hawaii Aleutian, also doesn't observe daylight saving. Idaho. Boise celebrates the new year by dropping a 16-foot-tall steel and foam potato in the state capitol. Every year, thousands of spectators gather to watch. Illinois. In 1887, engineers began to reverse the flow of the Chicago River to stop pollution from contaminating the city's water supply. The reversal was complete in 1900. Indiana. At 8 p.m. on March 31, 1880, Wabash became the first city in the world to be lit by electricity via 4 brush lights, invented by Clevelander Charles F. Brush.
Iowa.
The world's largest painted ball resides in Alexandria. The 4,000-pound baseball with a 14-foot circumference is the creation of Michael Carmichael, who began the project more than 50 years ago after dropping a ball in paint. He now adds another coat or 2 every year. Kansas. It's the state that was proved to be, quite literally, flatter than a pancake. Scientists tested the flatness of the state against the topography of a pancake. On a 0 to 1 scale of perfect flatness, Kansas was flatter, with a score of 0.9997. The pancake scored only 0.957. But it's worth noting that Kansas isn't the flattest U.S. state. That title goes to Florida.
Kentucky.
Underground vaults at Fort Knox hold one of the largest stockpiles of gold in the country. Not many people have seen the stash, though, and some even question whether the 27.5-pound bars, worth $6 billion, truly exist. Louisiana. A last-second home team touchdown at Louisiana State University in 1988 sent the fans into such a frenzy that the victory registered as an earthquake on a local seismograph.
Maine.
Maine is the loneliest number. The single state whose name is just 1 syllable, the lone state that borders precisely one other state, and the only state whose official flower, the pine cone, is not a flower. Maryland. It's the wealthiest state in the country, as measured by median household income. Massachusetts. 16 of the top 25 windiest U.S. cities are located here. It's a good thing Boston has the T to protect people from cold and windy weather. In fact, Boston established the country's first subway system in 1897. Michigan. The Great Lakes state offers the highest recycling refund in the country, 10 cents per bottle or can. Unfortunately, a Seinfeld episode alerted out-of-staters to Michigan's generosity, sparking a scheme that costs the state millions every year. Minnesota. This land of 10,000 lakes technically has more than 11,000. Oddly enough, you'd be wrong if you said that state had the most lakes. Its neighbor, Wisconsin, has over 15,000, but both of those pale in comparison to Alaska, with more than 3 million lakes. Mississippi. Dashing hatmaker John B. Stetson made his Western creation at Dunn's Falls after the Civil War, forever changing cowboy style. Missouri. Thanks to St. Louis and snacks popularized at the 1904 World's Fair, Americans can now throw back giant quantities of Dr. Pepper, cotton candy, iced tea, waffle cones, and frankfurters. Sounds pretty spectacular. Montana. The temperature in Loma once climbed from minus 54 degrees Fahrenheit to 49 degrees within 24 hours. Nebraska. About 80% of the world's sandhill crane population alights on Nebraska's Platte River during the crane's annual spring migration, bringing with them thousands of birdwatchers. Nevada. From 1951 to 1992, a swath of land about 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas was used for hundreds of nuclear weapons tests. New Hampshire. This state's license plates, bearing the slogan "Live Free or Die," are made by prison inmates. New Jersey. When it comes to the Garden State, remember two things: horses and divorces. New Jersey has more horses per square mile than any other state, including Kentucky, and the lowest divorce rate in the country. New Mexico. According to New Mexico state law, idiots are not allowed to vote. The statute doesn't give a clear definition of who fits that description. New York. Twice a year, the setting sun aligns perfectly with the Manhattan street grid, illuminating the borough's east-west streets. Then North Carolina. The Wright brothers made history in 1903 with the first powered airplane flight in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, marking the state as the birthplace of aviation. North Dakota. North Dakota produces nearly 90% of the U.S. supply of sunflowers, making it the unofficial sunflower capital of America. Ohio. Ohio has produced more U.S. presidents than any other state except Virginia, with 8 presidents calling it home. Half of the presidents who died in office were from Ohio: William Harrison, James Garfield, William McKinley, and Warren G. Harding. Oklahoma. The parking meter was invented in Oklahoma City in 1935, revolutionizing urban parking management. Oregon. Oregon is the only state with a two-sided flag, one side featuring the state seal and the other displaying a beaver. Pennsylvania. The first ever baseball stadium in the U.S., Forbes Field, was built in Pittsburgh in 1909. Rhode Island. Despite its small size, Rhode Island has over 400 miles of coastline, earning it the nickname the Ocean State. The smallest state in the country shares a state water border with New York. South Carolina. South Carolina was the first state to declare independence from British rule in 1776, leading the charge for American freedom. South Dakota. Home to Mount Rushmore, South Dakota attracts over 2 million visitors each year to see the massive presidential carvings. Tennessee. Tennessee is known as the birthplace of country music, with historic sites like the Grand Ole Opry and the Country Music Hall of Fame. Texas. The state of Texas is so large that El Paso is closer to California than it is to Houston.
Utah.
The Great Salt Lake is so salty that swimmers can effortlessly float on its surface, much like the Dead Sea. Vermont. Vermont was the first state to abolish slavery, doing so in 1777, nearly 90 years before the Civil War. Virginia. Virginia is home to the Pentagon, the world's largest office building, which covers 6.5 million square feet. Washington. The world's first Starbucks opened in Seattle in 1971, launching a coffee empire that now spans the globe. West Virginia. In 1947, West Virginia hosted the first ever Nash celebration in Grafton, where the holiday originated. Wisconsin. Wisconsin residents eat more cheese per capita than any other state, over 30 pounds per person annually. Wyoming. Yellowstone National Park, the first national park in the world, was established in Wyoming in 1872 and remains one of the most visited parks today.